There always seems to be a debate when Oscar season rolls around. What film actually deserved the award of Best Picture? In 1975, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest won Best Picture. However, it was nominated up against Jaws, the movie that changed the way films were made. So, what film actually deserved this award? Today, we're going to be looking at both of them to see which one deserved it. Jaws is the directorial debut of Steven Spielberg and was released on June 20th, 1975, to unprecedented numbers at the box office. Jaws grossed $260 million in the US alone and $470 million globally. While this may seem lackluster and like an average release nowadays, at the time these numbers were unheard of. The plot of Jaws is fairly simple. The town of Amity is being terrorized by shark attacks just in time for summer. Amity is a tourist town, and no one's keen to the idea of closing the beach even though the threat is there. Police Chief Brody takes it upon himself to see that the threat of the great white shark is dealt with. After attack, the beach is closed for 24 hours, which isn't enough time, but a manhunt ensues to hunt down the shark. A shark is found and killed, but this isn't the shark that has been committing these attacks. Another scare is what it takes for the beach to finally be closed down and Quint to be called in. Quint is a local war veteran and shark attack survivor. Quint, Brody, and Hopper take to the seas to hunt down the great white. The great white is finally killed and stopped by Brody. However, Quint dies in the process and goes down fighting it. The film ends with Hopper and Brody swimming back ashore. For much of the film, the threat remains unseen. We don't see the shark for much of the film, and this isn't on purpose, as the shark is notorious for giving the crew issues. However, I believe that the lack of seeing the shark works in the film's advantage, because the creative shots make up for what we don't see. A lot of the shots are from underwater, and they appear to be from the shark's point of view. One of the underwater shark's shots begins the film, and we see a girl swimming from below, and we thus see the shark. From the shark's point of view, we thus attack her. And this picks up the iconic score by John Williams. The Jaws theme has become iconic, and once you hear it in the movie, you know that danger is approaching. Another use of underwater shots in this theme is during the first attack on the little boy at the beach. We hear the theme, and we see the underwater shot, and once the shark attacks, we see the blood in the water. We don't see much gore in this film. In fact, during the autopsy of the first victim, we never see the body, but we hear every gory detail. The film will often be silent, and then the score will pick up and we'll sense the threat coming. Jaws was the first ever blockbuster film, and it broke box office records and changed filmmaking. Even though it's iconic and very influential, it still lost Best Picture to One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest was released on November 19th, 1975, and was the second highest grossing film in 1975 after Jaws. The film is about Randall Murphy, who is court ordered to live in a mental hospital. This hospital is run by Nurse Ratched, played by Louise Fletcher, and Nurse Ratched has a tyrannical rule over all of the patients. However, once Randall arrives, this changes, as he challenges Nurse Ratched in ways that she had never been challenged before. The film feels campy in many times, and comedic also, but as it goes on, it takes on a darker tone. The more that Randall challenges Nurse Ratched, the more she responds by punishing him and others. This film reveals the horrors of the mental institutions in the 1960s, as the film is set in 1963. Some of the treatments that are used on the patients include shock therapy and lobotomies, and it shows the full horror of what these people had to go through. One of the characters is the chief, a Native American who was sent to live there, and this film shows the racism and the way that society treated Native Americans at the time. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest ending is quite dark, as it sees one of the main character receiving a lobotomy because he challenged Nurse Ratched, and she wanted to silence him once and for all. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest was critically acclaimed and did amazing at the Oscars that year. Jack Nicholson, for his performance of Randall Murphy, won Best Actor. Louise Fletcher, for her performance of Nurse Ratched, won Best Actress. Miles Forman won Best Director. It also won Best Screenplay based on an adaptation, as One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest is based off the 1963 novel. The film also won Best Picture, up against Jaws. This was the first film since 1934 to win the 5 major awards at the Oscar: Best Actor, Best Actress, Best Director, Best Screenplay, and Best Picture. This was not repeated until Silence of the Lambs in 1991. This film also received other nominations such as Best Sound, which it lost to Jaws, and Best Supporting Actor. So why is One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest so critically acclaimed? I believe that it's because of the themes in the movie. While I believe this movie is less cinematic than Jaws in its shots and style, I believe that the themes make up for it, and the acting carries the movie all the way through. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest was even shot in an actual mental hospital to add a sense of realism to the setting. The film shows the full horror of the mental institution and mental health care system in the 1960s. These people don't really have too much of a mental disability. In fact, Randall Murphy doesn't have anything wrong with him, but he's punished more than anyone else because he challenges the head nurse. Racism is another driving factor in this film, as it showed the treatment of the Native Americans at the time. These themes and performances carry the whole film and show why it won the Best Picture at the 1975 Oscars. So what does it take to win an Oscar? What are the requirements for a film to win an Academy Award, or to even be nominated? Well, according to the official Academy Awards website, there are a list of requirements that a film must meet. The first requirement for Best Picture is it must be a feature-length film. A feature-length film must be more than 40 minutes long in its runtime. A film must also have had a theatrical release in Los Angeles County and ran for more than 7 days in a movie theater. How is a film even considered for an Oscar? Well, actually the process is quite simple. A film must apply to receive an Oscar. The Oscar submission form includes the following information: the film title and type, which is the genre, the production and distribution companies, the correct name of the Los Angeles County Theater, and the dates and screening times of the qualifying run. Projection format is also important, and prior releases and the runtime must be noted. The Academy must also know what visual effects were used, and the producer's name and contact information must be provided. On-screen writing credits need to be included in the film, and the source material, if this film was inspired by a novel or what inspired the plot. If was it original, a novel, these things need to be provided to the Academy. The crew also needs to be provided to the Academy and what they did. There can be no more than 10 actors and 10 actresses attached to a film to be considered for a nomination. There are also requirements that the theater needs to meet. This theater needs to have regular releases, charge admission, and be open to the public. There are other technical elements. 35mm or 70mm film must be used, or 24 to 48 frame digital camera. Minimum projection resolution must be 2048 by 1080. So both Jaws and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest both satisfy these technical requirements that the Academy has. To determine a winner, the Academy looked at the other things, looking at everything from shots to the use of audio to acting to themes to sets. The film as a whole. The Academy chose One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest over Jaws as the best picture. I personally believe this was the best decision.